The last decade of the Islamic Iran, at least according to the reports from a senior Israeli official reported by the Times of Israel and a few more Israeli media, that apparently there is a plan or there is an expectation for the Iranian regime to be toppled by the end of Trump's term. So that will be 2029. January 20th, if we are super precise, when Trump's second term ends. And yeah, there are a few reasons why that specifically, or why it's supposed to be in the next few years. And we'll discuss that today. We'll also cover death penalty for terrorists. Israeli Knesset, the Parliament of Israel, just didn't approve. It's not fully accepted, but it went into. I'm not sure if you guys do also like the second and third readings, or if you have a different term for it. But basically, it was moved forward to go into more approvals and more additions until it is finally approved. But it went through the biggest hurdle. So we'll discuss also that today. And Al-Jilani, the Syrian president, has just been in the White House. Not much movement on the Abraham Accords, at least according to Jilani. But we can also discuss that and a few other things. Welcome to the reality show. Joining me today is Michael Kaufman. Thank you for joining me. So yeah, last year we had, of course, the strikes on Israel from Iran. We earlier this year, when the first strikes started happening, earlier this year, we of course had a response from Israel, a big response, and also a joining of America in destroying the nuclear capacities of Iran. Something we have said in the time is, as much as this was unexpected, that we didn't even expect that this strike was going to happen, the fact still was this wasn't enough, and we stopped right before, or we stopped before completely toppling the Iranian regime. So yeah, I mean, Michael, just to go a little bit back into history, what do you make of both Netanyahu's and Trump's sort of actions when it comes to Iran so far? And yeah, and then we'll go into the sort of what future might hold.
Well, I was here, pardon me, my family was here in Israel during the Iranian war. There were missiles raining down on Tel Aviv and lots of other places in Israel. There were 33 people killed, I think 1,000 or 3,000 injured. Hard to get exact numbers, and reports differ. There were lots of buildings that were destroyed. Our air defenses did very well relative to the number of missiles, but relative to, frankly, protecting Israelis, we didn't do a very good job at all. And yes, sure, it could have been a lot worse. On the other hand, the whole point of having the IDF and having everybody, almost everybody in Israel, be in the IDF is to protect us. I was stuck outside of the U.S. and outside of Israel in the U.S. and I couldn't get back. I tried twice. Once when the war started, and once when the American bombers took off, and I had almost boarded a plane in Newark to get to Israel, and literally we were told to get off the plane. There would be no flights, that the U.S. was attacking. There was something going on, and then it was clear the U.S. was attacking Iran. Look, I think that Israel had an initially good strike. They killed a lot of top military officials in Iran. They hit a lot of important buildings. Keep in mind that the Iranian missiles were completely designed to destroy civilian infrastructure and maybe a couple of military, but there was no goal to topple military infrastructure in Israel. It was just shoot the missiles and hope they land somewhere in Israel and terrorize people. I mean, let's be clear, on the one hand, that one is a terrorist regime, and the other one was unfortunately fighting a war that is just frankly idiotic. And it ties a little bit to the whole issue of, do you put terrorists to death, which we'll get to later. But Israel were just, frankly, we weren't hard enough. We didn't provide enough deterrence. The Iranians are rebuilding their missile capacity. They're rebuilding their nuclear capacity. We all know that I think there are 900 grams of enriched, 60% enriched uranium that were lost to follow up, at least publicly. there's a lot of talk in Israel that the Mossad knows exactly where that uranium is, but they're not doing anything. No one's doing anything about it as usual, which is kind of the way the world works. Or you do what Obama did, which is to actually give them lots of money to continue to enrich secretly and avoid all the inspectors and do it. I think we did too little. I think we didn't provide appropriate deterrence. The fact that Iran is still saber rattling and still screaming about how they're going to attack us with 2,000 missiles at once and overwhelm our air defenses. Um, you know, we took out one last point. We Israel took out almost all of Tehran's anti-aircraft capacity in the first 24 hours. We owned the skies of Tehran. The joke was that with Ben Gurion Airport closed here in Israel for a little while, that there were more flights going from Israel to Iran than any other place on the world because Israel owned the skies, and we didn't do what we should have done, which was to send a much stronger message to destroy good pieces of Tehran and target it. And we could have done what we do, which I again disagree with, but we do it here in Israel, warn the people to get out of the buildings and we would destroy them. But it's very clear we didn't send a message. The problem we have, we'll get into the philosophy of that, but I think we did too little. And you know, the Americans, I'm glad Trump did what he did. And it was nice that the B-2s got to do the bombing run that they've been practicing for 20 years. But it wasn't enough. And whether it was enough at those particular nuclear sites or not, I don't know. But it clearly didn't provide the kind of deterrence that we need, nor did it end up toppling the regime. And frankly, it is like leaving a bit of cancer in somebody. There's no chance that we're going to make any progress with Iran. We, the West, we're going to make any progress with Iran until that regime is gone.
Yeah, I mean, first you mentioned the attacks on Israel, so I do have the stats for that here. So the attacks from Iran to Israel killed 32 people, wounded more than 3,000 in Israel, more than 36 missile impacts, causing damage to 2,305 homes in 240 buildings, along with 2 universities and a hospital, and also 13,000 Israelis were displaced. So I can also throw a personal story. When I was in Israel, the place I was staying at, I have a picture now of glass being shattered all over the place because close to there was hit. So again, everybody was impacted, and Israel did start responding. I mean, when it was happening, I think we did a 7-hour show the day it started happening. We covered pretty much everything. We've covered how the national TV, the building of the national TV of Iran was struck, which was an amazing sight to see. Again, hitting the propaganda at heart. So yeah, everything was great, and the fact is that it stopped. Like even after the American strike, what is important to remember is that Iran struck back to America after that. They struck American bases. But what happened, of course, was that the missiles were either the missiles were shot down, I can't remember now, or they didn't hit anything, but they were going for American bases, and basically there was no
Yeah, and they were
response.
warned. As far
Yeah,
as we
yeah,
know, they
and they
were
warned. Yeah.
completely warned. Yeah.
So basically, like the idea was that Iran just wanted to do something, so they saved face, and we let them. We shouldn't have let them. The fact was, yeah, they even if you justify that with their strikes on Israel, right? Like Israel will defend itself, so it's not that bad. But yeah, your intention was still to kill somebody. If I know martial arts and somebody runs at me with a knife and knows I'll like subdue him, he's still try to go after me and kill me. That doesn't mean that just because, and you know, think of the logic behind it, right? Because I'm capable of defending myself, that means I have less right to life. That means because I'm able to actually, because Israel is able to defend itself, because not a lot of Jews were killed, unlike in the Holocaust, for example, that means Israel and Jewish people have less right to life. But yeah, let's look at the actual sort of goal. So yeah, the idea is it should be toppled by the end of Trump's Trump's administration. Apparently, it's both countries that are sort of agreeing to this. One of the biggest problems is that even the strikes that did happen in Iran, I think now both administrations are sort of secretly admitting that it wasn't as big of a strike as they hoped for, as we initially thought. I think you mentioned that how much uranium was saved, and I think one of the things I've seen that apparently, even though the nuclear sites were striked, the enriched uranium is basically still there, and if Iran is able to dig it up, they will basically be able
I
to.
think it was moved. What I heard, again, this is talking to people that are ex
Yeah.
military here, and I don't know what, these are all hearsay at this point, but it was moved before the strikes because they knew that something, either the Israelis or somebody was going to target the sites. So they moved it.
Yeah, and in a similar way, of course, Ayatollah survived, which I think that was almost the biggest disappointment of the whole operation, the fact that we
Yep.
didn't take out Ayatollah. Now, when it comes to the reasons why he didn't take out, I think the official story right now is the fact that it simply wasn't an opportunity, that from the start he was like hidden somewhere where I think Israel even might have known where it was, but didn't have the capability to strike at that site. Now, there was a story going around that time that it was the Trump administration that didn't want to take out Ayatollah. So here are again sort of like reports we know. Take whatever you want from there. But yeah, so Iran is, of course, restoring its capability. As you said, it still says it will strike Israel. It keeps talking about how it won't be, it won't be scared. It won't be pushed into anything, but it will go for a deal. If somebody offers it a deal, they'll go for that, which I think would be the worst case scenario. Again, just doing some kind of lifting of sanctions or some kind of unfreezing of the funds, like during the Biden administration. Anything like that would simply give power to the Iranian regime. It would show them that, look, America attacked us and we survived. America sent their best bombers. They tried to take us. Israel, the little Satan, tried to take us, but we were able to defend ourselves. So, no, once you start, and I think this should have been started a long time ago, once you start, this job has to be finished. I want to go a bit into more why it needs to be, I think, in the next few years. But Michael, any more thoughts from you on this?
Well, one thing I think it's super important for people to realize, we'll get into why it needs to be finished. And people should think before we start talking about it, what good Iran contributes to the world? When I say Iran, in this case, I mean the government. What good this theocratic, autocratic government contributes to the world and has since the Iranian, quote, revolution in 1979. But I think you also should all remember that what the other little sort of story that's kind of going around here is that Tehran is running out of water. Much of Iran is running out of water. They are rationing water in all of the large cities in Iran. At least that's what the news says. And it's news from pretty much every country that you can find it. They're rationing water in a country that is focused on producing missiles. They are spending billions and billions of dollars, mostly that is from Russian and Chinese oil, I believe, sales to Russia and China against all the sanctions. Okay. They're spending it on missiles so they can kill Israel and fight the great Satan, the America, instead of on providing water for their people. There is talk that by the end of November that they will have to move people out of Tehran because there will be no water left in the reservoirs in Tehran. Everybody who's on this call should think about that in 2025, a country that holds itself up as the bastion of Islamic success and Muslim greatness is going to be rationing the most important resource we have and moving people out of its capital city. Now, it also may be moving people out of the capital city so we can attack Israel. But the fact is that I think there's indisputable evidence that the reservoirs are completely and are becoming, I think they're down to about 1/6, 16% of what they're supposed to be. Some of them are below 10% of what they're supposed to be, and they're draining out. And unless there is a substantial downpour in the next several weeks, they are in trouble. Okay, I wanted to point that out because I think it's an amazing contrast, and it also tells you how the regime treats its people versus its so-called enemies.
Yeah, and we have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. I mean, something I've seen in the news like a week ago, and now I'm seeing that it might be actually more official. Is moving the capital actually that they want to move the capital out of Tehran. For people sort of who are not familiar with geography, Iran is incredibly mountainous, and Tehran is in the north, or sort of like center north. So it is in the mountainous region, and they are talking about moving it to Makran, which is in the south, basically at the sea, which is the only access in the south is the sea where Iran has an access to. And of course, all the trade goes through there. So yeah, that's how desperate the situation is. Moving capital. I'm not even sure when was the last big time when like a nation like moved its capital, especially when it isn't even for political reasons. It's like for geographical reasons. It's for like not even economical reasons, but like survival reasons. Like we cannot like give water to people. It's that desperate. So yeah, I think Iran is primed to be taken out. And let's get to the reasons. Well, first, of course, reasons why it has to be taken out. And the fact is that, as I think we sort of alluded to, it's a terrorist regime. It's a regime that came into power by taking hostages, by taking American hostages. It's a regime that is actively supporting terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like the Houthis, specifically with the Houthis attacking international shipping, threatening every single nation. When it comes to, UN doesn't agree, cannot agree too much. But there was one resolution against the Houthis that even Russia and China, I think they've abstained. I'm not sure if they voted for it, but there was a resolution against Houthis that was able to pass through the UN Security Council. That's how much the Houthis are hated. That's how much even Iran itself is hated and is isolated. Like even the sanctions on Iran are largely even abided by China and Russia. So although of course they are trying to get out of it. So this is the regime we are dealing with. And when it comes to the reason why it has to happen in the next few years is I think, well, you always have, when it comes to any knowledge, when it comes to any information, you have to deal with the information you have right now. And the fact is, the next Republican president will most likely be, let's say Republicans win next election, it's going to be JD Vance. I think more than 50% chance as of right now, if you look at like betting sites. We are 3 years away, it might change, but as of right now, it is JD Vance. And I think JD Vance is famously isolationist. He wasn't for the Houthi strike, the strike at the Houthis. He wasn't for the taking out. He wasn't for the Iranian strike. So if somebody like J.D. Vance manages to become president, I think that's it for. I think not only for like any hope for taking out Iran, but much of the hope for even like being friendly with Israel. If J.D. Vance manages to become president, I think even the relationship with Israel will get much worse. And of course, if any Democrat comes into power, unless, I mean, I cannot think of anybody who would be like for it. So any Democrat that comes into power, at the very least, America will not be joining in taking out Iran, possibly even stopping Israel from doing so. And I think even on the Israeli side, as sad as it is, I don't think there's anybody better than Netanyahu when it comes to dealing with Iran. I cannot think of anybody right now, anybody who like has a chance. Of course, if it was somebody like Ben Gvir or Smotrich, I cannot think of his
Lemon?
name.
You don't mean lemon, do you?
No, no, no.
Lemon?
We had him on his channel. Moshe Feiglin. If somebody like Moshe Feiglin took over, but of course, none of them have chance to become prime minister as of right now, unless something really changes. So yeah, Michael, any thoughts on both why it needs to happen and sort of predictions in the next few years of like why it needs to happen right now?
Well, there's the, and people excuse me on medical analogies. I mean, we all know it's a lot easier to prevent heart attacks than it is to have one and then do something about it. And the damage is already done once you've had it, no matter what you do, and no matter how small the heart attack was. The fact is that some of your heart is dead, and that's going to lead to not only problems immediately, but problems down the road. Same thing with Iran. I mean, this should have been done a long time ago. What Obama did was despicable and stupid. No other word for it. He helped perpetuate a regime which is a blight on the planet. What's amazing to me is that since Obama, we all talk about Iran is the largest sponsor of state terrorism, and we say that like you would tell somebody that their best friend died. Only we don't say it that way. We just say it matter of factly, like it's sunny outside. We don't say it with any sort of meaning anymore. Iran is the largest sponsor of terrorism, killing of innocent people across the entire world. What are we doing allowing this despicable regime to continue? And the answer is that we're too afraid to stand up for what we all know is right, what anybody with any common sense and decency knows is right. And I posed the question earlier. I can't think of anything that this theocratic regime has done that is good for the world. Not products, not services, not foods that you can't get in other places has done since 1979. Never mind for its people, particularly the women. And of course, gays being gay there is illegal and punishable by all sorts of interesting ways to torture and kill people. So I don't understand what I believe is entrenched in the American State Department. I think part of the problem we have in America is that we have a lot of people that are unelected and are lifetime people. Remember, many of the people that are still there, even under Trump, are legacy people for failed failed Iran doctrine for the last 20 plus years. And I don't understand when somebody keeps doing the same thing. There's the saying, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over again and expecting a different outcome. And what we have not, I mean, this strike was a good start, but it wasn't, it didn't, it's like giving chemotherapy without reducing the tumor significantly. You did do something, you prolonged life maybe a month, but we didn't do enough. Um, and we have to get back to looking at these things much more objectively and stop with the criticism that we shouldn't be in the job of regime change. Of course we should. When people attack us or our allies, we should do what we did in World War II, regime change. We failed in most other wars ever since. But most of the time and lately we failed because we were too busy building nations, because that's the latest State Department policy that we're going to export democracy to people who are uneducated and have no interest in democracy. It is a ridiculous clash of policy decisions. So I think we need to get on it. And what Daniel said is absolutely correct. There's nobody on the left in Israel who could even contemplate an offensive regime, never mind protect Israeli. I mean, this is one reason why Netanyahu has stayed in power for so long, because first the left used to say we want to have a Palestinian state, and then they allowed the Palestinians, and then we had all the intifadas and everything, and eventually Netanyahu just grabbed power and held it. But Lapid and his people are just, and some of the others are just terrible. I mean, and I'm not a Netanyahu fan at all, and I think he's doing a ton of damage internally to the country. But we're in trouble. And then in the U.S., whether if it's Marco Rubio, who's also thrown up there as a possibility, I think we have a better shot. I'm not sure J.D. Vance will be quite as isolationist. He's also a devout Christian, and I think the Christians are pretty clear who's their friend, which is Israel, and who's their enemy, which is radical Islam. So that might be a way in with Vance. But I agree with you. Trump is by far the best person most likely to succeed here.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, on J Vance specific, and yeah, I think Marco Rubio is potential. Although again, I'm not sure if he can. Although we are 3 years away, everything can happen. We
Yeah,
have no
yeah,
idea. Just when it comes to, like I said, you have to deal with what it is right now, and I think on the poly market, cheat events is at like 60% or something like that. And I think
yeah.
then you have Marco Rubio at like maybe 20 or something. But yeah, he's like the second thing. When it comes to sort of, I think yeah, I think JD Vance is sort of like hiding his power level of like how isolationist he is, and I think if he really does manages to become, even though I mean you say he's Christian, like Tucker Carlson says he's Christian, right? There is like this new wing of the Republican Party, especially now with even somebody like Nick Fuentes and people sort of like shifting. So many Republicans seem to shift in that direction. Is especially if we have 3 more years with who knows what happens in Gaza, I think you might have like a rapid shift into isolationism for the Republican Party, which I think would be really scary because in this scenario, what isolationism means is America just letting its enemies to do whatever they want, go after whoever they want, and go after Americans. We are not even talking about, I cannot even find like an example of this. Maybe something like Vietnam that it's just Vietnamese going against Vietnamese for the most part. We are talking about Iran attacking American citizens, Hamas kidnapping American citizens, Houthis attacking international shipping, including Americans, Russia, for example, actively going after America, hacking American like energy companies, and so on. So America has like its own interest. This is not some like altruistic, we're just going after bad guys because we want to be the good guys. No, it's in American interest to go after these nations and to take them out if needed. You also mentioned sort of, I think, an important point about like Iran hasn't done anything. Something to, of course, remember is that in reality, no nation has ever done anything. It's the individuals in those nations. What that nation can do is, of course, shut down its people, don't allow it to produce anything, don't allow it to do anything, or it can encourage it or simply leave people alone to do great things. So you might have Iranian individuals that, of course, manage to flee the nation and actually do something in the West, do something in Western nations that allow them to prosper. But yeah, the Iranian regime itself is very much hard pressed to shut down any independence in its people, shut down any liberty in its people. Again, that alone is no justification to for us to just take out the regime for fun. It is in our interest, and only because it's in our interest, we should do so. Maybe just one more quick thing I would point there. I think the unfortunate, I mean, you mentioned the State Department, and yeah, the fact is that the general underlying philosophy and policy of America has unfortunately been very unfortunate, very sort of appeasing, no, even when it recognizes evil, not knowing what to do about it, very much like let these terrorist countries live or even make deals with them so we can have something against the other terrorist nations. And I think it's sort of like when it comes to the difference between American people, it's sort of like the two things. It's like chicken and egg, like what came first? Is it because if you look at what percentage of Americans want to topple the Iranian regime, it's below 50%. If you ask them if you don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, it jumps above 50%. But the fact is, the war against Iran itself is below 50%. Now, is the percentage low because the American policy has been pathetic for so long that people do not have the confidence in taking out Iran? Or is it the government itself is simply taking the position of the population? That is always like a chicken and egg question. But Michael, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Americans themselves would want the taking out of Iranian regime if they thought the government itself was, willing to stand up for it, like with the Nazi regime, or the Japanese Empire? Or do you think that Americans themselves have the philosophy is now so unfortunately bad that basically even the general Americans cannot see evil for what it is?
Well, I think most Americans are ignorant about our military capabilities. And I think the other problem that gets conflated, mixed in with all of this, is that if you want to tout wars like boots on the ground, Afghanistan and Iraq, or American, not that many by Vietnam or Korean standards were killed, but one in dead is too many, frankly. If you're gonna portray the war as being that, with American boots on the ground and lives directly in danger, then of course Americans are not going to support that. Now, a couple of points. The first thing we should all remember is sentence number one in every discussion about Iran is that the regime and many of its supporters are screaming death to America and then death to Israel, either in that order or the reverse order. That this is number one point. This is their byline. This is what they want to have happen. Death to America. So any discussion about Iran has to start with an acknowledgement that either they are children who don't know what they're saying, which might have been true 2 years after the revolution, but probably is not true 46 years after the revolution, or they need to be taken seriously at their word, in which case we probably ought not to wait until they actually directly attack us beyond what they did with their proxies, mainly the Houthis and in Gaza, where they took American hostages. And of course, Joe Biden, like any good Democrat, didn't do a thing about it except talk, much as Europe does. They had committees. That's point number one. The second point is that despite the fact that Israel had many missiles rained down upon it, and Daniel read the exact statistics that are the generally agreed upon ones out there. The fact is that for all of the missiles they sent, not many got through, and Israel is within current striking distance of the Iranian missiles. And we didn't have, frankly, all of our long-range anti-missile defenses up and running the way we probably should have here. That said, America is not in striking range. I mean, some American bases are, but everybody in Qatar at the American base, which was attacked, knew, I believe it was Qatar, who knew that, or one of the American bases knew that they were going to be attacked. And so I believe the missiles were taken out and some fell. It's generally expensive to take them out. So if they're going to fall into uninhabited areas, you let them fall. But the point is that America itself is not in any striking distance within Iran. Now, we have intercontinental ballistic missiles in America, and we have submarine launched, and we have a military that is $1 trillion+ military. One of the most awful non-use of taxpayer dollars in America is to maintain this extremely expensive military and not use it. Peace through strength. I mean, this is true from the dawn of time. You don't mess with people that are bigger, stronger, faster, and mightier than you are. You just don't, unless you're a complete nut, in which case you need to mess with them and be annihilated. And that's what we should do. We America, could absolutely take out Iran in a matter of days. Let me say that again, and I'm willing to challenge any. Israel took out Tehran's air defense in less than 24 hours. Did it twice, by the way. There was a bombing run 6 months, I think, before the most recent war, where Israel took out almost all of Tehran's air defenses. Israel had complete control over the skies, over the capital of Iran, and essentially over all of Iran. So I don't know what anybody is talking. We were told by the so-called experts and the pundits and all this crap that Iran has a 1 million person army and none of this matters anymore. We're in modern warfare. We fly a bunch of F-35s or B-2 bombers and whatever other aircraft we have and drones and everything else, which is the best on the planet, and we can annihilate Iran in a matter of a week or so. We can't annihilate every last person. They're going to hide from us. We don't need to clean it up. We don't need to do country building. But we need to actually attack like we mean it. This isn't going to be like World War II. And that's I think the most disappointing thing about all of the public doesn't get that. And frankly, all of the Democrats and some of the Republicans like to portray the modern wars as going to be boots on the ground, people getting shot. And we're not going to do this. It's not ISIS. It's not what we're trying to do. And we need to stop worrying about civilians. There's too much at stake here, folks, for us to start counting how many Iranian civilians we kill while we're trying to annihilate an absolutely theocratic, nutty, revolutionary regime that wants to have nuclear power to ablate the world of Israel and, frankly, the rest of the West. They've said it, they mean it.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to sort of dealing with Iran, it was the same as dealing with Gaza. Turn off the water. That was all that was needed when it came to Gaza to
Yeah.
actually get them to surrender. And similarly in Iran, strike a few dams, strike a few water reservoirs, and that's it. That regime will fall. You cannot, what, they have 3 days to figure it out or negotiate for peace or anything. Again, it's only because we have accepted the philosophy that somehow the regime is different from the people. Somehow the people that sustain the regime are different from the regime itself that we now have to protect. And again, if there are rebel groups in Iran, to some extent, we should support them. Again, depending on what they are, you have to like really think. We do not want to get a situation where we get somebody like Al Jolani in power because he's less bad than Al Bashar, or similarly, Assad, Bashar
Yeah.
Assad. It's not Al Bashar. It's
One of the two. But
yeah, we
yeah,
do not want
timing,
to
very
have a
good point
situation.
taken.
Yeah, we do not
Time.
want to have a situation where we support some different kind of terrorists. Just to take out the regime. But if there are sort of better people in Iran, support them and do whatever you can to take out the regime. So yeah, I think the policy is clear. The timeline is clear. Not to mention, again, just letting people know invasion of Taiwan is happening, and America should be ready to deal with that and not have anything else on its plate when it actually does happen. Which, when it comes to the invasion of Taiwan, it's also predicted to come this decade. So again, that also has to be remembered. Any last thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, I think we have a really broken State Department policy. I think, frankly, the way Steve Witkoff negotiated and frankly came short of on the Hamas deal, and which is it was a deal that got the hostages back, but Hamas is not giving up their weapons. They're not leaving. I mean, this is and frankly, nobody in America who knows anything about a terrorist regime thought that they were going to suddenly go get trained to be accountants once this deal was signed. It was the absurd. And in fact, Jared Kushner had to go in and finish with this deal. And again, it's great for Israel that we got the hostages back. It's a huge emotional burden lifted off the Israeli people. But the notion that Hamas is going to be neutralized by some sort of a negotiation is just the height of stupidity. There's no other word for it because it's failed time and time again. And Witkoff truly believed, as did the man under Biden doing the same stupid mistake, that terrorists would sort of negotiate to save their own lives. That terrorists like to blow themselves up. At least a lot of these guys do. And yeah, sure, they kind of want to live, and certainly the rich ones that are all living in Qatar and Egypt and Turkey are very happy there. But people should realize that we in the West have not understood how absolutely life demeaning and death affirming. You heard that right, death affirming that this Islamic militant philosophy is. We have not internalized that in the West, and therefore we're unable to negotiate with it, in which would normally mean we are going to annihilate you, and the first three guys that come up, we do annihilate them. We just don't do that. We talk to them and we treat them like they're just Westerners who have a different idea, which, by the way, is exactly what Biden would tell you and Obama. And the answer is that they hate life and they are completely repressive, horrendous regimes.
Now, let's move on to actually dealing with these people. As I've said at the start, Knesset approved. Now, again, isn't fully formalized, but it is moving along a law to basically establish death penalty for terrorists who come and invade Israel. Now, I do want to go into the law itself because I think there are some good things, there are some maybe problematic things. But let's talk about sort of like the abstract first, the theory of it. So, when it comes to the war, I think you do whatever is necessary to end it as soon as possible. If it means taking out Hamas, killing the terrorists, taking them out wherever they are, you do whatever is necessary to end it as quickly as possible. When it comes to people who invaded Israel on October 7th, again, whatever you can do to take them out as soon as possible. If you manage to catch them, I think maybe there is a world where you do want to have uh, do want to preserve the prisoners of war, mainly as a sort of like self uh, preservational thing about your own hostages or your own prisoners that are taken by the enemy side. So hopefully you can get them back, and sort of there is this reciprocal thing. But the fact is, we are dealing with organization that doesn't care about any of that. We are talking about an organization that had hostages and they died during the captivity because Hamas is unable to take care of the hostages they have taken. So, as far as I'm concerned, whatever terrorists you can get, I think they should still get some sort of a trial, some sort of a, what are they, what did they actually kill Jews? Did they only try to? But as far as I'm concerned, the death penalty should be possible. And yeah, any terrorist that it can get to, especially a war, especially if we are talking about people who invaded Israel on October 7th. Again, you have no business being there. If you are dead, you came in to kill, kidnap, mutilate, or do whatever to Jewish people, to all Israelis for that matter, or anybody who was there at the time, right? Foreign nationals were also taken as hostages. So, as far as I'm concerned, in theory, I'm okay with the death penalty for, in terms of war, I'm still when it comes to the domestic politics, if we are talking about like Israeli citizens or even of Arab descent, whatever, I think I'm generally still against that penalty. But when it comes to foreign people from foreign countries that come in during war or to start the war, death penalty all the way. Michael, any thoughts on, let's say, just the abstract of the death penalty for terrorists?
Yeah, look, I'm a huge proponent of the death penalty for all capital offenses. I mean, if I don't care if someone's a citizen or not, but if there's how anyone could defend, let's forget about the negotiating tactic because I think it has completely backfired on Israel, and it is actually moronic because we keep trading 100 to 500 prisoners uh, for one Israeli body, dead body, or a live person. And by the way, the recidivism rate, I don't know if you've seen the articles, but the latest research shows that the recidivism rate back to actual documented terrorist activity, so this is a minimal number, is 80%. I mean, only a people that is suicidal would return, people that you have an 80% chance that they're going to come back and kill you. It is completely stupid. And it's one of my huge fights with the philosophy. It's one of the big problems in Israel that they are stuck with sort of a mix of kind of ridiculous religious philosophy where it's derived, I think, from sort of Jewish philosophy and respect for life, even for people who don't respect themselves and even for people who actually want to murder them. And I don't mean just murder them, I mean annihilate the country. So if there's one thing that you would hope that Israel could agree on, it is that if someone is a terrorist, they should be put to death. Documented and proven, put to death. Don't keep them in jail so that one day they might either break out or be traded back. And this is a big problem in Israel that there's so many I think until recently, frankly, and I believe this is pervasive in Israeli society. It's a fairly young country, and they have absolutely diametrically opposed ideas The big one, of course, is that the Haredi draft doesn't really exist, and there's 15%, and it's growing. It used to be less than 5% of the population didn't go to defend the country. They studied Torah. Now it's 15%. They also get subsidies. But the point is that it makes no sense to have the people that are paying taxes and paying with their kids' lives to defend the country at the same time that you're giving handouts to other people to study the Torah and not go and defend the country. This was supposed to live happily next to each other because we had to have people in Israel that studied the Torah. I mean, this is completely baffles me as an outsider, I guess, coming in. Same thing with this notion that you should not put people to death who are bad actors. These are not bad actors. These are the worst actors on the planet. And it is only a liberal human being who could, and I mean liberal in this case in a bad way, only a self-sacrificing human being, because certainly no animal behaves this way. If an animal's attacked, it will fight back into the death of one of the two animals. And frankly, I don't know too many humans who, if they were personally attacked, wouldn't fight back and defend themselves if they were being attacked to be killed. But they can still apparently hold a view that it's somehow okay for these humans to go attack their friends and neighbors and family, I guess family members, and not be put to death for doing that and run the risk that they might do it again, whether they break out of prison or if they're returned. And that's what I cannot fathom, is how anybody could put themselves, their family, their friends, and their fellow citizens at risk in this regard.
Yeah, I think I yeah, mostly agree. Again, the only reason why I would be against it when it comes to sort of like domestic law is of course the fact that even even judges, even juries can go wrong. There are instances of unfortunately putting on death penalty people who were innocent. But again, when we are dealing with at war, again, if you are a Palestinian who is in Israel on October 7th, there is no like circumstance where it's, you took a wrong turn and you ended up in Israel and you didn't. And even then, again, it's not automatic death penalty if you catch a Palestinian in Israel, right? It's there are still no. Well, let's go to the actuality of this law. Basically, the idea is that there is a bill stipulation in this that Israeli courts must impose the death penalty. So here is like the first interesting thing, that it's must impose the death penalty. It's not like an optional thing for those who have committed a nationalistically motivated murder of the citizens of Israel, while and also the judges serving in military courts in the West Bank to sentence offenders to that with simple majority rather than unanimous decision. I think there was already or was some form of death penalty in the when it comes to military courts, but it had to be unanimous. I think you usually have like 3 judges, and all of them had to agree for the death penalty to occur, and they changed that to simple majority. So yeah, so that is sort of the standard. So the idea is that it is basically terrorists who come into Israel to kill Jews for the sake of basically destroying the Israeli state, for the sake of simply going and killing Jews. That is the way it is written. So it's not about yeah, it's basically targeting these specific people. It's targeting terrorists. It's targeting Hamas, targeting Islamic Jihad, targeting any terrorist organization in the region. Any quick thoughts on this one?
No, I think it's great. I think we shouldn't be leaving it up to humans to wobble or be influenced. Don't forget, these bad actors aren't going to go gently into that good night, as the poem goes. They're not, and you never know if a judge can be threatened. The notion that we can protect all these people is absurd. We can't. We haven't even protected our people. Since October 7th, we've had missiles. We've had all kinds of problems here. We didn't protect our people. So you shouldn't leave it up to humans when it's this egregious. You don't need yeah, the fact that they even get a trial, I have difficulty with all that, frankly, because I thought that most constitutions were constituted and set up to in order to protect citizens and not to protect terrorists. And I don't understand how a non-citizen gets similar rights to a citizen. But be that as
Well,
it may,
if I can like
well,
jump on it, I think something
sure.
that's important to remember about trial is that, when we say trial, we think of like years long sort of thing oftentimes. And I think you just need a process because I think if we are thinking like without trial, that would be basically IDF coming into the prison, taking the Palestinian and like shooting him like in the in the building or somewhere. So I think some process, we do not have to call it trial. I think some process of like having a record of like this person did
That's
that and
fair.
that.
Yeah, fair. I mean, the notion of anything drawn out for more than a few months is beyond me. But I do want to. It's just hard for me to picture all this
Yeah.
because it seems to me you round up a group of terrorists because either you shoot them and the ones that don't get shot who surrender, the terrorists that surrender who are on lists of terrorists. I mean, it would seem to me to be a very fast decision. If they're on a list of terrorists and they surrender, you give them the death penalty. They made it onto the list somehow. And we need to spend a lot of money and time on checks and balances to make sure our military isn't overstepping its bounds? Uh, in a perfect world, yes. Of course, we would check all this stuff. But I can't, given the resources that are so limited, it's just hard for me to understand how we would afford such great oversight protections. And I take your point. We need a process for sure. But I maybe could just be as simple as if a terrorist is on a pre-existing list and you can prove that, and yeah, I know it can be doctored, blah blah blah. That you would just put them to death and move on, because for as long as you spend dealing with that terrorist, it's time taken away from doing something that might help an actual citizen of Israel or a victim of the terrorism.
Yeah, I think again, when it comes to, we already agree that when it comes to the war, people are going to be killed. Like you are waging a war. If there is a building, but you know there are terrorists, you are going in, and there is a chance you'll kill them. If you manage to catch them, again, if you wanna take them to make sure sort of like have some kind of process in some cases, as far as I'm concerned, if we know that these people are terrorists, if we know that these people did what we think they did, it was already okay to take them out, right? If you like confirm a strike, like take the strike, it was already okay to take
Yeah.
them out. If you manage to catch them, as far as I'm concerned, you can remove them, you can kill them as well. Again, we are dealing with war. You end it as soon as possible. It's not pretty, it's not nice. This is what war is. That's why you don't start one. And maybe if there is actually a proper way of waging a war, less people will be inclined to do so because they know, not only they know that when Israel catches them, they go into prison, but they might actually get released in a deal. I think the fact that that is possible is ridiculous. I think I've covered many examples of, I mean, people like, and thankfully I'm forgetting the name of these terrorists. That's how irrelevant they were. But the leader of Gaza for a long time,
You
I
don't mean
can,
Sinwar, do you?
Sinwar, yes, thank you.
Where we also took his brain tumor out in
Yeah,
Israel. We
yeah.
were very nice and performed tens of thousands of dollars worth of brain surgery on the man so he could organize the largest massacre of Jews. I mean, I do want to, I'm a bit on a soapbox on this issue, but this shows you the complete internal contradictions that exist in this country, and the country will not survive this. We saved this man's life, and we then exchanged him for a prisoner. So instead of you can't get many Israelis can't even get that level of brain surgery here, but we did it for the worst enemy we had, and then it turned out he really was the worst enemy. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, that was the point I was going into. That yeah, even somebody like him, he was released during the Gilad Shalit deal, and many of the terrorists who were released then went on and were part of October 7 or were part of
Absolutely.
different
Yeah.
different things. I think one of the people who took part in the Ramallah lynching was released during the Gilad Shalit deal. He was caught again after October 7, and he was released again a few months ago during the or like a month and a half ago during this deal. So we have people who have been released multiple times. We have people who were released millionaires because Palestinian Authority is paying these terrorists. So Bonnie in the chat says no prisoners of war. I think like this is something I would like morally. I think I'm okay with these people being taken out. Like that's it. When it comes to practicality of the reason for having prisoners of war, maybe if you could prove that if you have prisoners of war, they are more likely to surrender and you preserve the lives of your old soldiers, right? That basically, if there is like a mechanism for them to surrender, more people surrender and you preserve more IDF lives. I think this is the kind of like practicality. Go for practicality when you can, but morally, I'm okay with these people being taken out. Again, they've chosen to go to a war with a nation. They have forfeited their not only their right to life, but their own like self-determination, if we want to give it, as a sort of people to have a legitimate state. They've completely giving all of that up, and yeah, you should do whatever. Again, the goal of Israel is to preserve as many both lives of its own people and lives of its soldiers to end the war as quickly as possible. So we had one topic, but unfortunately we do not have any more time. But I'm sure we will have more. I think Michael himself here will be on one more time this week, so maybe we'll leave it for Thursday. But Michael, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think the world has to get it. I mean, in general, and the U.S. has to lead this because no one else is leading in the world today. And Israel, frankly, is too small and it's too fragmented. And certainly, Netanyahu's coalition in Israel currently is a disaster. So it has no moral standing in the world, even if it was, pieced together here in Israel and is tolerated right now. And that is that we've got to start to stand up for evil, to evil. The weapons of mass destruction and the ability to wreak havoc is so great, and at the same time, the ability to help and catalyze human flourishing is also enormous. People can have catalyze a flourishing life for its citizens, but if we tolerate countries like Iran and so on, we're not going to have a better world. And their opinions are much worse than our opinions. There is a teaching in America that pretty much, and it's an Obama-esque kind of a moral relativism, that all of these philosophies are fraught with good things and bad things, and they're all kind of equal, and there's no really good, and it's all gray, and so on and so forth. This is absurd. This is the really a suicidal notion. The West has won the human flourishing proof of concept. There has never been a philosophy that has helped human flourishing more than democracy coupled with economic capitalism or mixed capitalism. I would argue we need more capitalism, but anyway, than what we have here, period. And the fact that we export all of this, the knowledge and the goods and the services, and teach people and educate them, and then apologize for ourselves, which is a very progressive left Obama-esque notion, is really it's self-defeating and it's stupid. It also doesn't help flourishing in the world. So Daniel made, well, I'll just comment one last point. Daniel made a great point in here. Governments do not create value. Governments don't come up with new ideas. All governments can do is get the heck out of the way. Tesla didn't come about because Biden decided we needed more green policy, or AOC woke up one morning and said, this is a good way to make everybody feel bad about themselves. Okay, so the point is that we need to help people flourish and get governments out of the way and support those governments that are basically good and trying to be better, and shun those people who are terrorists and destructive. Michael Kaufman on LinkedIn, 2 F's in Kaufman.
Uh, Well, and with that, let me remind people that they can sign up for the ARCUK's mailing list. That's the best way to find out about anything ARCUK. And we'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective and the reality show. Until then, bye bye.
Thanks, Dan.